Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, King County has a surprise for a Seattle neighborhood, a new homeless shelter. We'll talk about that later, but first, time for your daily dose of adrenaline.
You want me to stick this into my heart? Are you f***ing nuts?
The left has lost their absolute minds. They keep doubling down on the worst possible positions on every single issue. What were they mad about all weekend? How dare Donald Trump blow up a narco drug dealer terrorist boat? How dare he blow up a cartel boat? All the Democrats and Rand Paul. Oh, why didn't you give the Venezuelans, the gang members, the cartel members due process? Why you just board them with the Coast Guard? Well, they're narco terrorists, so they don't really get due process, and they're about to bring drugs that could kill how many people, and they probably had weapons on the boat, so why put the Coast Guard members at risk? All right, that's number one. They're mad about Doha today. What are they mad about? They're mad that Israel went in and took out the leadership of Hamas in Qatar. Qatar has been harboring Hamas for over 10 years. And Qatar is the one that told Hamas not to return the hostages, and Hamas has refused to negotiate with Israel. Guess what? You refuse to do that, there are consequences for your actions. You're going to get blown off the face of the earth. But what they're really mad about today, how dare you Republicans? How dare you bring attention to the fact that a prolific offender stabbed an innocent woman to death on a subway? How dare you? In fact, if you mention this at all, you are racist. Now, I was shocked that I saw this person on CNN because I thought they weren't part of CNN anymore. Brian Stelter, the baked potato.
Now that's a name I've not heard in a long time. A long time.
I didn't know he was still around since they canceled his show. Maybe it was for takes like this one.
Right, most murders in the U.S. never become national news. This one's garnered attention for a couple of reasons. Number one, first and foremost, the recent release of that gruesome video. Second, the energy from pro-Trump activists. They picked up on this video from local news and ran with it. It's a little bit like the times when civil rights groups have raised attention about police-involved shootings. In this case, it is Trump-aligned influencers who are posting up a storm about this case on social media. Really, over the weekend, Elon Musk, Charlie Kirk, other Trump-aligned figures succeeded in making this senseless death a symbol of big city crime. We heard President Trump asked about it yesterday when he was heading home from New York City. He didn't seem to know much about it. He said he would get briefed, and then today, Trump did know all about it. That's exactly what has happened here. This story has trickled up from local news to social media and now to the president's attention, and it's being used, as you said, Brianna, as a political symbol, with MAGA media calling for more forceful punishments and more incarceration. I have to say, some of the replies to Musk, some of the comments around this story are baldly racist, stoking fear of African Americans because this man attacked a white woman. The open racism on sites like X today, it's eye-popping. But there are also legitimate questions about this so-called career criminal, someone who had been a repeat offender. And those questions, I hope they're not lost amid all of the cesspool kind of comments on social media.
You know what, Potato? Maybe you shouldn't have left the prolific offender question till the very, very end. Let's see. You blamed MAGA influencers. You blamed Donald Trump. You blamed MAGA influencers. You blamed the White House. You blamed MAGA influencers. You blamed racism. Then you mentioned prolific offenders. You spent 90 seconds. That's an entire clip that you get when you're on TV shows like that one. You spent 90 seconds, and you didn't mention the real problem till the very, very end. You have an issue with prolific offenders, and you never mentioned who's responsible for that. How long have we been dealing with the revolving door of justice here in Seattle? It's one of the things that got me into politics. It's one of the reasons I have a radio show now. When was the first time I started dealing with this? 2017, 2018. So almost a decade. I've been screaming about this, and it turned me into somebody who is now working on influencing opinions because it got so bad and so out of control. And our terrible model here has been used as a blueprint for the rest of the country. New York's cashless bail system, based on the one here, based on diversion. North Carolina, basing that stupidity on New York. And so on and so on. The bad ideas start here and then they spread. Brian Stelter, that was one of the worst takes ever. Because what people are mad about is how could a prolific offender be released that many times, randomly walk up to a woman, stab her to death, a woman who's a Ukrainian immigrant. Hey, Brian, I noticed you're one of the Ukraine flags in a profile, people. You didn't mention that at all, did you? The woman fled a war in Ukraine, which you claim to support, and you didn't mention that once. In fact, where are all the people with the Ukraine flags in their profiles saying, this is awful, she comes to this country to get away from all that and get stabbed to death by a prolific offender? No, for them, the narrative of our justice system is racist is more important than their virtue signaling on Ukraine. It's insane. Absolutely insane.
Well, it's more than that. They're blaming us. They're blaming conservative media and MAGA influencers. Like, using this as like a talking point. Yes. In fact, actually, the first part of that clip with the baked potato before he starts getting into dog whistle territory, I'm like, don't threaten me with a good time.
Right.
Come on, man.
Well, in fact, here's this. Why were we the ones to do it and not the mainstream media? The mainstream media should have been the first ones to say, we got a problem with prolific offenders. 60 Minutes should have this week's episode on cities with prolific offenders being released. You think that'll ever happen? Of course not.
How about no?
See, Dr. Evil knows how it goes down. Instead, what are they going to pivot to? Their favorite thing. Racism. It's all cause of racism. How dare you bring this up? Here's Van Jones on CNN, one of the head pundits of the left.
Let me just say a couple of things. One is, what happened to that young woman was horrible. And it's everybody's nightmare. If you're in any public space, a subway, whatever, that something bad's going to happen to you or somebody you care about. So it does strike a chord. We don't know why that man did what he did. And for Charlie Kirk to say, we know he did it because she's white, when there's no evidence of that, it's just pure race-mongering, hate-mongering.
Oh, shut up. You know why? I've got the tape of what happened. I've got the tape. As soon as Van Jones said this dumb thing, we don't know why it happened. I don't know. Gee, gosh, George, I don't know. Which way did he go? Here's how we know. Listen carefully. This is the tape. This is the timestamp after the murder itself. Here's the suspect. See if you can make out what he's saying. I got the white girl. I got that white girl. That sounds pretty clear to me about what his incentive was, what his motivation was. Hey, you know what, Mike? I was wrong. This is about racism. It's about a black guy hating a white girl. And nobody wants to talk about that one, do you? In fact, the lamestream media, when they started finally covering this thing, would you like their headlines? Here we go. This is the New York Times, the Gray Lady, the paper of record of our country. A gruesome murder in North Carolina ignites a firestorm on the right. Security footage captures the unprovoked stabbing in Charlotte. Became an accelerant for conservative arguments about the perceived failings about Democrat policies. I'll tell you what, New York Times, I will debate any single one of you on the statistics about the perceived failings and show you how they are actual failings. Politico. Ukrainian refugee killed in North Carolina gets dragged into political messaging war. Really? That's the way you guys are going with this? And, of course, the Axios one we did yesterday. Stabbing video fuels MAGA's crime message. That's how they're covering this. They're covering it as if this is all something conjured up, completely made up by the right. No, your bad policies got here. And yesterday, we illustrated that this is not a one-off occurrence. You literally had somebody stabbed on mass transit here yesterday in King County on the Metro. We had a bus driver who was stabbed to death earlier this year. How many stories have we done about stabbings and hatchets on our light rail? How many stories have we done about that? So many, Mike, that yesterday when that story popped up, I thought it was an old one that was just trending with everything else. That's what I see the bus and I go, oh, somebody decided to repost the bus driver story. No, it's a new one. TriMet in Portland. I literally wrote an article for the Post Millennial this time last year. I went up and looked it up about the assaults on the transit staff. Assaults on transit staff here in King County have gone through the roof. Not just on the riders, but also on the staff. Hey, where's Katie Wilson, the Transit Riders Union, who are supposed to be advocating for all the transit staff and the safety of transit and all that? Well, we see what happens when your virtue signaling collides with your virtue signaling and actual facts. Your head's going to explode. They don't know what to do with any of this. This is the nonsense they are peddling. Oh, it's just concocted by the right wing. No, it is not. In fact, the media is complicit in this because they never like covering these stories. In fact, Mike, it seems like none of our local media ever covers this stuff anymore. It seems like our local media, somebody gave them the message, you know what, guys, tone down the crime stuff. Tone it down, except for Como. Como is really the only one that still covers this kind of stuff. Everybody else, no. It's like, oh, there's new baby animals at the zoo. Oh, the Mariners, they could go all the way. The Sonics! Are the Sonics... Oh, well, that's technically Como, too. But anyway, are the Sonics coming back? Caroline Levitt called out the entire press corps today.
And perhaps most shamefully of all, the majority of the media, many outlets in this room, decided that her murder was not worth reporting on originally because it does not fit a preferred narrative. Many of the journalists in this room spilled plenty of ink trying to smear Daniel Penny for defending a subway car from a deranged lunatic in New York City, but none of those same reporters lift a finger to write stories about an actual murderer. Here's the truth that
Exactly right. Exactly right. Remember that Daniel Penny guy? He was demonized. He was prosecuted for stopping a lunatic on a subway who we don't know what he was going to do. Don't know. Oh, and the drugs in the system may not have helped that guy really stay alive. Sound familiar? We've been through this a bunch of times before. But yet, this story they don't want to cover unless they have an angle to go after Republicans. By the way, Zoran Mamdani, terrible timing, by the way. Terrible timing. He was on video over the weekend talking about how we need to release everybody from jails. Yes, because that's what New York City needs. More people released from jails. Talk about bad timing.
The jail population of Rikers has increased since Eric Adams has come into office by more than 1,000 additional incarcerated New Yorkers. And what is quite staggering to me is that we know that we can reduce that jail population to less than 4,000. I mean, Vital City had an article about a number of different proposals that could reduce it to 3,700.
Why would you want to do that? You want more criminals on the streets? Eric Adams, I'm no fan of Eric Adams, but guess what he said? He said, we got to get these psychos off our streets. And you know what? They put them back in jail. You remember Jay Inslee and every single Democrat used COVID as an excuse? Let's release everybody. Jay Inslee wanted to release the Green River Killer. This is the insanity. They keep saying, oh, it's the justice system. It's the justice system. If you have problems with the justice system and you want to reform the justice system, tell me how you want to fix it. Tell me how you want to fix it. But until then, I want the psychopaths off the streets. Look at downtown Seattle. Look at what has happened to King County. Look at what has happened to Tacoma. Look at what has happened to our sound transit system. Look at what has happened to Metro. Look at what has happened around here because you have these soft on crime policies. And it's not just here. The last time I was on the subway in New York, it was absolutely horrifying. Look at the streets of Los Angeles. Look what's going on in Chicago. 54 shootings over Labor Day weekend. Do you think that's a success? Hey, I know how to reduce the population of jails too. Let's just open the doors. You know what, Mike? I know what we should do. Let's get some explosives, blow a hole in the side of Arkham Asylum, and just let all the lunatics free in the Narrows. Let's just do that. Total Bane style from the comics, not from the Dark Knight movie. Let's do that instead. We know that what that results in, but the left is back to saying that again. And how dare you say that actually putting people in jail might keep psychos off the streets? You want to have a conversation about actual reform? Then let's have a conversation about reform, but none of these dumb ideas about community working together on this have actually worked. Instead, what are we up to our eyeballs in King County? Fraud, fraud, fraud. Millions, if not billions of dollars in fraud in King County spent on these failed programs that were a grift for the social justice organizations from 2020 and BLM. I dare anybody to disprove me based on the statistics that I am citing here, based on any of these statistics. Oh, crime is going down now? Well, from record highs, bravo. You managed to get it to go down a little bit. We're still going up and the rest of the country's going down, and that's according to the FBI crime stats, which, by the way, are incomplete because not every police station gives in their numbers. This is a failed model, and the left is demonizing Republicans over it. We're not the ones who pushed it. We're not the ones who came up with this stupid idea. We've been the ones who have been calling it out. How many more lives is it going to take until they wake up? The truth is they're never going to apologize. There should be consequences for actions. If you commit a crime, you should be in jail. If you commit a lot of crimes, you should not be released from jail. That's it. End of story. Sorry, some people are just bad eggs and you can't fix them. Sorry, that's the way it is, but that's the way it is. These policies are getting people killed. How high do you want the body count to be before something is actually done about it? We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from Bob in Seattle. Bob, what's up? Hello, Bob. Going once, going twice, and sorry, Bob, call back. Didn't hear you that time. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from our frenemy, Bennett the Protester. Bennett, what's up, man?
Hey, I'm driving. Can you hear me okay?
Bennett, you're completely breaking up. It sounds like you're in a convertible or something.
I am in a convertible, but the roof is up. Can you hear me okay?
Not really. Give us a call back when we can hear you, buddy. Appreciate the call, though. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, take a call from Transit Joe. Transit Joe, what's going on?
What's going on is I'm currently on the transit bus. I can hear you just fine. And to celebrate today's Israeli terrorist exterminator mission over Qatar, I didn't put on just one, but two Israeli Air Force patches, and I'm wearing them right now on the bus. I feel perfectly safe, and obviously I fully support making transit even safer.
There we go. So let me ask you this. Would you like to ride Sound Transit at midnight in through South Seattle?
Yes, and I would endorse Chris Harrow over Tommy Wilson any day of the week.
I like your hesitation. The yes. If I say no, Ari's going to call me out for it. But if I say yes, at least I get to stand by it. Appreciate the call. Appreciate the kind words, Joe. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss. King County is going to be putting a new homeless shelter in a Seattle neighborhood. And as usual, they're not telling the neighbors. Is it your neighborhood? We'll tell you which one when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. This next story, I feel like I've heard many, many times before. In fact, this is another story I had to check to see if this was something we had already reported on 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, because this is the same thing we've heard over and over again. Ready? I'm going to leave out the location for a second. You just tell me if this sounds familiar to you. This is from Como News. A group of business owners and residents allege that King County has not been transparent about its plans to put a new crisis care center next to a brewery, hotel, and a school. Why is it always a school? Why do you guys always want to put these things right next to a school? Why do you guys always want to put these things right next to businesses? I'm going to talk from my own personal experience again. Any of you have been to downtown, excuse me, not downtown. Any of you have been to Rainier Avenue where it hits the I-90 interchange? If you're driving through South Seattle and you're on Rainier Avenue, what you will see is where the Rite Aid used to be on Rainier Avenue next to the QFC, they turned it into a homeless hygiene center. So, for taxpayer-funded drug addicts, literally taxpayers funding this thing. And what happens, the entire surrounding area is now RVs, tents, you name it. In fact, I posted on my social media the other day, I wanted a video of that speed bump on the on-ramp on the I-90 interchange, all the graffiti around it. It's gotten exponentially worse. It's zombie land in South Seattle now. We used to have to worry about getting shot or a car stolen in South Seattle. Now you got to worry about the zombies and getting shot and the car being stolen in South Seattle. Thank you so much. I went over to the cash and carry the other day, which is where we usually go. I'm definitely not going to that one anymore. I'm going to a different one, and it really bothers me because I love cash and carry. That's where I get all the candy for the kids at the synagogues. That's where I go get all the treats. That's where I go get all the stuff for the big barbecue fest that we have. That's where I go get everything. And I go there, and I was worried if my car was going to be there afterwards because there's so many burned down buildings, so many empty lots that the homeless have taken over. So when you put in one of these quote-unquote care centers, which is really just an enablement center, what happens is it destroys the entire neighborhood. This is what always happens. Well, now they're doing it in Capitol Hill. And what I love about this is you've got all these lefties on Capitol Hill who are like, don't you put that near, not in my backyard? You're a bunch of NIMBYs all of a sudden? The group sent a lengthy letter to King County Executive Shannon Braddock, County Council Chair Gurmay Zahalai, and Department of Community and Health Services Director Kelly Ryder last week, accusing them of potentially violating laws and triggering a devolving street crime situation, like what happened with the failed navigation center in Little Saigon. Now they're asking the county to pause the financial transactions that would use taxpayer levy funds to purchase the building. So, apparently the Cancer Pathways building is right next door. You know where they treat people for cancer? Here's from Anna Gottlieb, quote, "We have done cancer support work for 25 years in this building." She talked about the one across the street. We're trying to help people. Now she talks about they have to build a fence around the thing. The county never reached out to them to tell them this thing was going in, and they're going to have all these crime problems because they know. They know. A glass store next door is worried. They moved out because of issues in the neighborhood. So now you guys want to make this worse? Bravo. Bravo. So now it's coming to Capitol Hill. Hey, I wonder why Whole Foods closed the store up there. Do you think maybe Whole Foods closed the store in Capitol Hill because they got wind that this was coming to the neighborhood? I can't believe that QFC on Rainier Avenue is still open. By the way, if QFC goes, you know what's going to go right after that? The Lowe's across the street. Lowe's, holy cow, that parking lot. It's not illegal aliens I see over there. It is zombie land over there. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Looks like Bennett's back. Bennett, what's going on?
Hi, am I coming through better?
Yes, we got you. Solid, perfect,
Okay,
perfection.
I mean in terms of sound quality, not what you think of my arguments, but if the sound's coming through better. Okay, perfectly.
All right, what's going on, man?
All right, well, you were talking about the coverage of the subways stabbing, and my feeling is I don't see why people are saying this is not getting enough coverage, because it seems like this particular murder, which happened to involve a blonde, white, conventionally attractive woman killed by a black man, is getting wildly disproportionate coverage compared to the average murder in the United States. I looked it up. There are about 22,000 murders in the U.S. per year. And I don't understand why people – I mean, this is – of course it's horrible. Of course it's terrible, especially having a video of it. But I don't understand why people are saying this should get disproportionately more coverage than all the other killings.
So I'll tell you why. Bennett, I will be clear about my bias with this one. I will be very clear about this. It is literally proof, tragic, horrible, awful proof of all the failed policies we talk about all the time. Now, the reason the left all of a sudden started covering this is because they're trying to beat back the narrative, where they gave the conservatives a whole nother news cycle with the dumb headlines trying to seemingly blame conservatives for talking about this. And if we want to talk about disproportionate coverage, Kilmar Abreu Garcia, an MS-13 gang member, got infinitely more coverage than this. It's been 3 days of this. 3 days. Kilmar Abreu Garcia, this has been going on since what, May? June, something like that. George Floyd, how long did that go on for? The media picks up on what they pick up on, but then everybody fight about it because of the narrative that it displays. In this case here, in this case, I'll make my last point, then I'll let you make yours. In this case here, if the media said, you know what, we actually got to do something and change this thing about prolific offenders, I think it actually would have gone away faster. I'll give you the last word, then I got to run.
Okay, but I mean, part of the right-wing narrative, and I'm not even going to call it that. It's probably true that many murders are committed by people who have been in and out of the system multiple times and released again, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, the conventional narrative is that is a common occurrence. So that still doesn't answer the question. If that happens all the time, why has this specific murder, why has it gotten that so much more coverage? Why does it deserve that much more coverage if murders are mostly committed by people who are repeat offenders?
Well, I think you're right on that.
I understand what the argument is.
No, Bennett, I'll agree with you on that. In fact, we talk about them all the time. This one, I think the reason it's getting so much coverage is because of all the pushback on it. I think that's actually the reason why. I think that if the left had just said, and covered it and said this happened, that would have been it. But like I said, they gave the right another news cycle because instead of saying, yeah, this happened, instead they framed it as it's the right's fault. I agree with you, Bennett. I'm actually agreeing with you. But they didn't do what they normally do. Instead, they used it to demonize the right, which was a little bonkers crazy, creating a new news cycle. Glad you're safe. Glad you're driving safely. Enjoy the convertible. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Speaking of the crime in the streets of Seattle, I saw a headline from Como News. Apparently, Bruce Harrell is supposed to be giving an update on the downtown activation plan, about the progress that has been made. That's the thing that's supposed to fix downtown. I haven't seen the actual press conference yet. I thought it happened earlier in the day, but I haven't seen an update on the news site. And the thing that cracks me up about this is you're going to tell me you activated the drug dealers? Because I'm looking around and I see more drug addicts on the street than I saw this time last year. Last year, if you had made the case for Bruce Harrell's making things better, I would say he was about holding the line like he did when he was the Seattle City Council president. It was about moving them from place to place to place to place to place, out of sight, out of mind. But ever since he embraced this far-left Katie Wilson ideology of, I don't want to sweep people because that's not compassionate, it's just gone worse and worse and worse around here. So please tell me how your downtown activation plan is going. Have Chief Wiggum join you out there. Talk about how great it is. Well, we showed them a video. And after we showed them a video, the video was for me, and I thanked all the officers for their service, and then I had an idea. Maybe we could have them go patrol bad crime neighborhoods. Oh, really? Yeah, that's what that press conference is going to be if it even happens today. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Dave in Puyallup. Dave, have you been to the fair yet?
No, Ari, I haven't, and I don't think about it. Won't be able to.
Oh, bummer. Okay. We'll be there next Monday if you change your mind, okay?
But I'm one of your avid show listeners. I want to address Bennett for one and address you. In 1965, when there was a murder that happened and it went out on the news, our nation went into pretty much shutdown mode, and people were outraged and incensed by somebody being murdered. And now when we have it on a bus, I think that we become so desensitized to death and murder that it becomes a common practice. And when we've done that, there's a saying I think that is found in it's an Old Testament saying, woe to those who call evil good and good evil.
Interesting. I will agree with your points. I'll add to them a little bit. I would make the following argument, Dave, and you can tell me if you disagree with me. When we all saw the George Floyd video, at the beginning, go back to the very, very beginning, before we knew about the drugs or his criminal history or anything, the video's pretty bad. And when you see the video, you go, that's awful. And I think for a very, very brief moment, everybody said, yeah, maybe we should do something about this. And people went and marched in the street, but very, very quickly it became about, well, let's destroy things because of racial justice. Let's let people out of jail. Let's destroy the entire system. And let's go burn down Amazon or Car Toys or Walmart or whatever else it was. For a brief moment, it could have been that way. Now here, if the left and the media had actually said, you know what, we have a problem with prolific offenders, maybe you would have seen a groundswell. Hey, let's end cashless bail. Hey, let's fix some of these things. But unfortunately, you never had a moment of unity on that at all because immediately the left was, it's MAGA's fault. It's all MAGA's fault. So I agree with your point, Dave. I would actually just add on to it from that direction.
Let me give you a final thought.
Sure.
There's a saying in the Bible that says, it's like a man who looks at himself in the mirror. He looks at what he sees and walks away and forgets what he saw.
Yeah, that's a good one, too. That's a good one, too. Dave.
You know what? I think that too often, it becomes controversial, and we try to make it a cultural thing, or it's a black issue or a white issue. It's a life issue.
Yeah.
All lives matter, not just black, not just white. Israel matters. United States matters. People's lives matter. And when we allow evil to persist the way it is without doing anything, shame on us.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm completely with you. That's why we talk about this stuff on the show all the time. Dave, appreciate the call. Appreciate your thoughts. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, a surprise attack by Israel on Hamas kind of scares the rest of the world, thinking they'll be next. Did President Trump know about it in advance or not? My theories when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. the left media was so desperate to not talk about the stabbing on the train in North Carolina that immediately after Caroline Leavitt, White House press secretary, called out the entire room for not covering prolific offenders, for not covering this story, for being terrible on crime, what do they ask about? Not, hey, the president said he's going to end cashless bail. Hey, what are we going to do about this? Hey, the White House's response. Why do you think MAGA influencers? None of that. Immediately they went right to Israel. Israel. Let's talk about Qatar. We got to talk about the bombing. Now let's take me for a minute. I'm clearly biased. I clearly have a horse in this race. Okay, but I'll say is that today I said to Mike, what do you think is the hotter story of the day to our audience? I go, I find this Israel thing fascinating, but I've still got the subway thing. Which one? And Mike goes, the thing on the mass transit. That's more local. We could talk about. I go, you're 100% right. Let's do it. But the media doesn't want to discuss that at all. Instead, what's happening 9,000 miles away? Let's talk about that instead. That's how terrible our media is. So what happens? Israel does a surprise attack in Doha, Qatar. That's the capital of Qatar. It was a targeted strike to take out the heads of Hamas. Now, what had happened was there was all this back and forth on negotiations regarding returning the hostages. Hamas has walked away from these negotiations multiple times. They have rejected ceasefires dozens of times. They have rejected hostage deals dozens of times. This one pretty much gave them everything they wanted. Don't forget on Sunday, President Trump came out with a tweet on Truth Social, or whatever they call them over on Truth Social, saying, Hamas, this is your last warning. Thank you for your attention to this matter. He literally said that. And then what happens 2 days later? Israel finds out that Hamas is getting all the leadership together so they can discuss this proposal and bombs them to kingdom come and takes out the entire leadership. I think they've eliminated so much of Hamas's leadership that now Greta Thunberg is in charge. I think that's where we're at now. Saw that one on Twitter. Thought that was pretty funny. This was a brilliant move because, once again, you head fake your enemies. Now, the White House did have an interesting statement on this today.
I have a statement to read for all of you with respect to the Israeli strike in Doha, and here it is. This morning, the Trump administration was notified by the United States military that as Israel was attacking Hamas, which very unfortunately was located in a section of Doha, the capital of Qatar. Unilaterally bombing inside Qatar, a sovereign nation and close ally of the United States that is working very hard and bravely taking risks with us to broker peace, does not advance Israel or America's goals. However, eliminating Hamas, who have profited off the misery of those living in Gaza, is a worthy goal. President Trump immediately directed Special Envoy Witkoff to inform the Qataris of the impending attack, which he did. The president views Qatar as a strong ally and friend of the United States and feels very badly about the location of this attack. President Trump wants all of the hostages in Gaza and the bodies of the dead released, and this war to end now. President Trump also spoke to Prime Minister Netanyahu after the attack. The Prime Minister told President Trump that he wants to make peace, and quickly. President Trump believes this unfortunate incident could serve as an opportunity for peace. The president also spoke to the Emir and Prime Minister of Qatar and thanked them for their support and friendship to our country. He assured them that such a thing will not happen again on their soil.
I don't believe you. I am pretty convinced that the U.S. knew about this beforehand, and I am pretty sure that they coordinated with it. And hey, if you warn them and we get them all together, they've done it before. They've done it before. Qatar has been harboring the heads of Hamas for over a decade. Qatar are the same ones who told Hamas, don't give up the hostages. Why Donald Trump wants to play footsie with Qatar? I understand you got to have foreign relations. I understand you got to have good relations with countries you don't necessarily like. I understand we have an air base there. At the same time, they are part of the problem. They've been harboring the heads of Hamas since long before October 7th. They're not partners in peace. They are part of the problem. They sponsor terror around the world. They're barely better than Iran. Why are we in bed with these people? Whole nother question. But this is basically the make nice version of it. And you know what? This sent a very loud and clear message. You want to negotiate or not? Because you guys weren't actually negotiating. You were trying to get a Palestinian state, or you were trying to get whatever you were trying to get, but you didn't actually want peace. This is who's next? Who wants to be the next head of Hamas? Step right up, guys. There's not many people left. I hear Greta's on her way with a whole flotilla. They'll be there soon. You can make them heads of Hamas. They're too dumb for us to even waste time on. Just leave them in Gaza. That'll work out great. When we come back, my friends, your calls, your texts, because there's a lot of them. You guys are lighting up my phone like a Hanukkah menorah. We'll talk about all that you want to talk about when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, next Monday we will be back at the Washington State Fair again. If you missed us yesterday, we'll be there for Military Appreciation Monday. That's right, back again. I'll make sure to put the schedule out on our social media, but Phil will be there in the morning. Mike will be there in the morning-ish and afternoon-ish. That's right, with his horn, which was a big hit yesterday. And I will be there in the afternoon and evening. Make sure to get your tickets over at thefair.com. That's thefair.com. A lot of great texts today. So this one here from, which one here? Yeah, right here from Dave. One reason this murder, he's talking about what happened to the Ukrainian woman in North Carolina, is so publicized is not because of race, but it is a violent and preventable murder on public transit. If roles had been reversed, you know what the liberal media's story would have been. Exactly right. Jeff and Ken says, Israel bombing Hamas in Qatar. I'm only surprised it didn't happen sooner. I agree. They tried to work with them, but no. Here, this one, this is great from Steve. Steve says, Ari, tell the IDF it's now okay to take out Greta since she's in charge of Hamas. All right, guys, I know you all think I work with Israel and stuff. I don't have access to that, but that's funny. I do find that very entertaining. I love how last night they actually falsely claimed that somebody droned their boat when some idiot on the boat set off a flare or something. Morons. Robin Lakewood says, Qatar, U.S., strange bedfellows. Trump sending Qatar a message. F-A-F-O. Exactly. Dave says, Israel just said, work with us or we will work with your successor. Yeah, I think that's very, very true. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Scott in University Place. Scott, what's going on? Hello, Scott.
Hey, you know, one thing, we keep on talking about this guy, they ought to have been in jail. Not train in the first place because there's no fair enforcement. And we had a guy the stabbing on one of our trains recently too, and I'm willing to bet that there was no fair enforcement for that either. So I'm not saying mass transit's a wonderful place, but we could probably make it a safer place if we just practice fair enforcement.
Yeah, I think there's a big problem with the light rail. For example, if you go through all of South Seattle, those platforms are on street level. There is no way to do fair enforcement except if you let the guys on the trains. And the guys on the trains, we know they give you 4 warnings before they write you a citation, which you can get out of by going to a class. That's not fair enforcement. It has to be the way it is in New York, where they have the conductors going up and down the train, pay or get off. That's it. It's that simple.
Yeah, and this isn't something that's unique to just Seattle and either. You see people jumping turnstiles in New York and so forth.
Exactly, and when you enforce that kind of stuff, enforcing that kind of stuff is the broken windows policy. Fair enforcement, small crimes. Yeah. You take care of that, you stop the bigger crimes, because then the lunatics are not on the subway as often. Scott, appreciate the call, appreciate the perspective. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Bob in Seattle. Bob, what's up?
Hey, real easy question. What would have happened if that gentleman, or I use that term loosely, if he would have shot that girl instead? What would the narrative be?
Oh, yeah, you're right.
You're
right. It would have been gun control. We need gun control. You know what? Let's shut down Cutco. We need knife control, right?
Yeah, Hakeem Jeffries would have run to the podium and just said, See, guns are out of control in America.
Yeah, like I was discussing with Bennett, the frenemy protester earlier, is that because the narrative was so messed up coming from the left, and because they tried to demonize the right, and because they didn't cover the story, they extended the story. But also, they're not interested in actually solving the problem. They don't want this to go away. They want to keep clinging to that failed and provenly false narrative that, if we just defund the police, everything will be perfectly fine. The reason they're fighting this one so hard is because it blows a hole in their narrative.
Yeah. One more twist, so to speak. What if that young Caucasian lady would have defended herself with a gun? It would have been illegal gun owner shoots and kills special needs African-American person.
You're 100% right. That's probably what they would have done. That is likely exactly what would have happened. Bob, appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show? You give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Got about 30 seconds left for Leonard. Leonard, make it quick. Go, buddy.
Sure. What I was going to say is that, the neighborhood you spoke of, which is right there where Lowe's and to a kid. I used to live 7 blocks away from there. And the house that I used to live across the street from was actually a drug house where people go down there and buy drugs.
Yeah.
And thank God they cleaned it up.
Well, I'll say it doesn't look like that. Now it probably is worse than when you live there, Leonard. Trust me, I drive through that area all the time. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. When we come back, my friends, Bob Ferguson says Floridians should move to Washington. Are you kidding me with this? We'll have that for you, plus so much more when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KBI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, the Seattle Times and Bob Ferguson decide to keep up fake narratives about detained illegal aliens. But before we get to any of that, looks like our governor, Bob Ferguson, is in the news a lot today.
Yeah, it's not my name. All right, Turd Ferguson.
I was shocked when I saw this last night. You never, ever, ever see Bob Ferguson on TV. You rarely ever see him do any interviews locally, let alone nationally. Were they short on content last night? Was CNN so desperate to not talk about the fatal stabbing on the train in North Carolina? They go, who do we got? Where's the bottom of the barrel? Where's the bottom of the barrel? Who can we find out there? People may not know who they are and think it's a news story.
Turd Ferguson. It's a funny name.
Ah, that's right. That's who we got in our Rolodex right there. Let's get him. Now, I watched the whole interview. I had to go find the whole interview when I saw this one little clip. And it's mindless, and it's stupid, and it's dumb. Basically, here's what it is. They are so desperate that they don't want to talk about what happened in North Carolina with the stabbing, that they're talking about this alliance that Turd Ferguson has built, together with Hawaii and California and Oregon, to make sure that everybody gets the COVID vax. And we're going to ignore the CDC. Instead, we're going to come up with our own plan for vaccines for your children. Guys, this was, one, it was last week's story. Two, it wasn't that interesting at the time. Three, everybody made fun of it. Four, these are the people who politicize the CDC, now saying, I don't like that you're politicizing the CDC. And five, nobody wants the COVID vax anymore. So really, this is a dead news story. That's how desperate they are not to talk about what was happening in North Carolina. So, what did the turd actually say while he was on national TV?
Florida isn't even bothering to take a look at what those impacts might be for public health. So look, if you're a parent in Florida watching this and you're concerned about the health for you and your family, hey, come to a state like Washington State where we're guided by the science, and we'll do everything we can to make sure you have accurate information to make good decisions for your family.
You think anybody from Florida is going to move to Washington State? Yeah, they're thinking about getting rid of property taxes in Florida. They don't have the homeless problems in Florida. People would rather take a chance on a hurricane than live here because of the disastrous policies of you and Jay Inslee. Follow the science? Are you kidding me? You guys didn't follow the science on anything. You're still not following the science. Turd Ferguson literally had restrictions on press events at his office for mandates and masks and you name it longer than anybody else, even past the time where Jay Inslee got rid of his reign of terror of 975 days of emergency powers. But he follows the science? You really think that people from Florida want to move to Washington? No, my friend. They really, really, really don't follow the science. Oh, give me a break. Are you kidding me? Hey, by the way, if we're talking about following the science, your science from Washington State Health Department and all the other health departments locally said the vaccine wasn't working. In fact, I have all those documents. It wasn't stopping the spread. So you're not following the science right now as we're talking. I don't want to be lectured on following the science from people who say that boys should use girls' bathrooms or boys should play on girls' baseball teams or boys should compete in girls' track and field event and say, oh, gender is non-binary, blah, 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 blah. Spare me. Spare me your nonsense. Don't tell me you're following the science, Bob. By the way, he looks like such a beta, such a skinny little nothing. He does not do TV well. He just doesn't. He's like Pete Buttigieg. Just looks like he's filling out Dad's suit. Or he's the kid in the AV club who finally got a suit. Now, mind you, not to be outdone, Attorney General Nick Brown. Oh, dear. This was a miss, I will just say. So, Attorney General Nick Brown decides to post a video where he's reading mean tweets about himself. Now, right now, we know that Attorney General Nick Brown is under investigation by the Washington State Bar and has to respond to allegations they've made of him using Washington taxpayer dollars in there's a whole bunch of stuff going on with him. Perkins and Cooey. It's not good. It's not good. It's really, really bad. If the Washington State Bar Association, which is a far left organization, is saying we need to check that out, then guess what? You're in deep doo-doo. You really, really are. So he's trying to distract from that because he's getting a whole bunch of online hate. So what does he decide to do? Steal a bit from Jimmy Kimmel. A bit from, 5-7 years ago, where he used to have celebrities come on and read mean tweets about themselves. Now, I clicked this thing out of sheer curiosity, wondering if one of my tweets about him was going to be in there, or one of our friends' tweets were going to be in there. No. He picked a bunch of randos. But what's worse is, not only is he not funny, not only does he not have the charisma, not only does he not realize he's not in the confession room of Survivor anymore, or whatever it is they do on that show, they piped in a laugh track. They put a laugh track over something that's not funny. This thing is 5 minutes long. We only clipped about a minute of it because it's so painful to watch. Give a listen.
Hey everyone, this is Attorney General Nick Brown. One of the best things about my job is that almost every day I get handwritten letters from people in Washington and across the country saying thank you and expressing their gratitude.
I don't believe you, but sure, let's keep going with this.
For all of the work that's happening here. On the other hand, I get a lot of mean tweets, and so we're going to share those with everyone today. First up, you are dirtier, less reliable, and less efficient than you should be. Aw, thank you for your comments. Nick Brown is what a head looks like. Wow. Were you born an asshole, Nick? Or is being an asshole something you've worked towards? Well, Jason, don't surf. I've also never surfed, and I don't know if this just comes natural or not. Thank you for your comments.
Clearly not. For a guy who was on a reality TV show, he sure doesn't have a lot of charisma on TV. This is awkward. Now, he called out one specific tweet from Watchdog Wah, and this was the only time I laughed at this thing, and it wasn't because of what he said. It's because of what Watchdog Wah posted. It said, "You sound like a teenage girl who desperately needs attention all the time." Yes. Yes. Exactly right. That's exactly what he sounds like here. Tell me you're trying to avoid talking about the scandals you're involved in without telling me you're trying to avoid talking about the scandals you're involved in. And the laugh track you put in? Do you guys actually do any legal work over at the Attorney General's office? There's like 700, 800 attorneys over there. Are you kidding me? How much money of the Washington taxpayers was spent on this? Somebody's time was spent on this. Your time was spent on this. This is what we're paying you for? If you really want to avoid this stuff, ignore it. Make it irrelevant. You just gave a platform to all these people who hate you, thinking it would demean them in some way? Are you kidding me? I just started following some of these people because of what they wrote. Bravo, Nick. I wonder if next time around he's going to include people like me because he didn't get what he wanted out of this one. This is so sad and so pathetic. What, you're upset you don't have anything to sue Trump about this week? So you decided to make this video? So lame. So lame. From Randolph and Ravensdale over on the Warrior Injury Law Studio line, Ari. From a different angle, a huge migration of Floridians to Washington really isn't such a bad idea. They wouldn't have to stay here forever. Just 6 or 8 election cycles would be helpful. Oh, very good, Randolph. Very, very good. John in Lakewood says, "Hey, Ari and Big Mike, Floridians are willing to risk not only hurricanes, but also flooding, hogs, invasive species, and sinkholes rather than move to Washington." Yes, exactly right. Bob in Portland says, according to Turd Science, men are women, and there's no difference in athletic performance, except for his daughter. His daughter, she plays the softball, right? I'm sure there's no dudes in that league, right? Yeah. Oh, people are being mean to the turd. Oh, I just called him the turd. So, yeah, I get why you're being mean. But yeah, this is how desperate they are for attention. Floridians moved to, I know a bunch of people from my synagogue who moved to Florida to get away from their bad policies. And while they're doing all this, who's actually minding the store? These are not walk and chew gum people at the same time, right? So, CNN had on the turd because they go, all right, who hates Donald Trump these days? It's only 20% of the country. Where can we find somebody? Washington State. Next, they're going to have Inslee on. By the way, Mike, I don't know if you knew this. Over the weekend, Pete Buttigieg was in town. Pete Buttigieg was at the Paramount Theater here over the weekend. And judging by your appearance, you and everybody else had no idea he was here. Do you know who they had interview him, by the way? They had Jay Inslee interview Pete Buttigieg. So my guess is that the reason nobody knew about this whole thing is because the video is probably unusable. Let's do a little guess what this probably sounded like. It's so good to have you here because you hate Donald Trump and you worked for Joe Biden. Can you tell me why I wasn't hired as the director of the Environmental Protection Agency? Well, Jay, next question. Okay. You did such a good job in running the Department of Transportation. Can you tell us about your greatest successes? What are these two going to talk about? These two absolute failures on stage for what, 90 minutes? What are these guys actually going to talk about? I think one of the reasons you haven't seen the video circulating online is because nobody actually wants to put it out there. You've got Pete sitting there in his dad's suit just sitting there. And you've got Jay Inslee, the most incompetent governor of all time. I didn't even see Jay share it on his social media channels. I went looking for this. Oh, well, who's actually minding the store while all this is going on? Now, we know about this King County auditor's report, which was released last month, that shows that they blew all this money in grant funding from organizations that used to get $22 million, that now get over $1.5 billion with no accountability for this money whatsoever. Now, a reminder of why they did this audit. So what happens is they have all these social justice organizations that they've given all this money to. And King County has a budget crisis because they blew through a whole bunch of COVID money that was one-time money and upped their spending. And they don't have the money anymore, so they decide to actually do an audit. Good on them. And they're mad because these social justice organizations aren't meeting the goals they set out for them. So this is coming from their lefty perspective. So now Claudia Balducci and Gurmeet Zahalai, who are both running for King County executive, are being quoted in every news outlet in town. We demand accountability. We want people to look into this. How do they get this much money? How come nothing's actually worked? How come this isn't working the way it's supposed to? And then they say, I'm going to be the one to fix it. That's right. Vote for me. I'm going to be the one to fix it. Why weren't you guys paying attention to this beforehand? Why weren't you guys paying attention to this beforehand? It's your job to oversee taxpayer funds on the King County Council. So how come you weren't looking at this beforehand? You had your chance. You blew it. Pretty sure I heard that in a song somewhere. You guys didn't do your job. Now you want us to elect you and then you'll start doing your job? Wow, you sound like Kamala Harris talking about the border crisis. Now, David Gutman over at the Seattle Times had an interesting article that came out right before we went on air today. He says the very first sentence of a blockbuster King County Auditor's report released last month contained an eye-popping finding. The county's Department of Community and Human Services awarded more than $1.5 billion in grant funding in 2023-2024, up from $22 million in 2019 to 2020. That's an increase of 6,700%. How could spending have increased so drastically? The answer, it didn't. King County Auditor Kimber Waltmunson informed the Metropolitan King County Council on Tuesday of a significant error in the recent audit. DCHS grant funding actually increased from $922 million in 2019 to 2020 to $1.8 billion in 2023-2024, an increase of 95%. Wait, hang on. The Seattle Times and King County are defending this. Their excuse for this was, well, we gave them a ton of money. We almost doubled their funding to still accomplish nothing. But it was a math mistake. It was a math mistake. Why is everybody in that auditing department not fired immediately? You have one job. Your one job is to do math, and you couldn't even do the math right. Everybody should be fired. Every single one of them. And I got to say also, Balducci, Gourmet, you guys called this out without checking the math. You just saw the headlines. You could have been the hero who swooped in and said, wait a minute, this doesn't sound right. Let me look at the numbers. Let me look at them. You didn't. You believed the headlines, and you want to fix them because you have an election. And because you were so fixated on that, you could have been the savior who said there's a math mistake and we're firing everybody. You know who actually did do all this? Donald Trump. Remember how mad everybody got about Donald Trump firing the person who was in charge of tracking the jobs? And they all said it's because he didn't like the jobs report. No, it was so much worse. It turns out, and this is something I have been saying for literally a year and a half, I have been saying the only thing that was stopping it from being declared a recession in Joe Biden's economy were the job reports. If the job reports had been as bad as I thought they were going to be, it would have officially been a recession. But they didn't want to call it out the year before an election. So what did they do? They made up the job numbers. The Bureau of Labor Statistics just revised down their job numbers from April 2024 to March 2025 by 911,000 jobs. That's almost 1 million jobs. Most of them did not even exist. Month after month, they were revising them down or revising them down. It's fine to be off by 1,000, 5,000, maybe even 10,000. But off by 100,000, 200,000, 50,000, 60,000? That person needed to be fired. And the Trump administration says, we're going to fix this because we need the accurate jobs report. You know why they need the accurate jobs report? If the jobs aren't growing, you can say to the Fed, hey guys, this is a metric that is showing that interest rates are too high. If people can't borrow money, then they can't expand their businesses. Then they can't hire employees. And if they can't do those things, your unemployment rate is going to continue staying high. And that's the point they wanted to prove. But because of Biden's inflated numbers, what was the narrative from the left? Mike, we even got an angry phone call about this last week. What was the angry phone call? How do you feel about Trump's job numbers now, Hoffman? And I said, at least he's being honest about it. And we should look at it because it is a clear indicator of high interest rates. Then the caller vamoosed before he could even answer. But that's exactly what was going on. The Biden administration was inventing, manufacturing jobs, not actual jobs, jobs reports. They were showing that these jobs existed when they didn't, to stop them from declaring an actual recession going into an election year. So they fudged the numbers. And anybody who was responsible for fudging those numbers should be the ones who are fired, because you know what Biden could have done? He could have said to the Fed, hey guys, you know what? We're having this issue with jobs. We need to bring down the interest rates. And then you know what would have happened? It would have helped out the economy. It would have helped it grow the economy, and people would have had more jobs, and he would have had legit jobs reports going into the election. But instead, he didn't do it. And as a result, one of the many, many reasons Kamala Harris lost the election. Donald Trump came along and is being honest about the jobs report. There's no shame in being honest if the numbers are bad. If you say, here's how we're going to fix it, and you fix it by lowering the interest rates. Our politicians here don't know how to be honest. Donald Trump says exactly what's on his mind. He's the only one being honest around here. Lots more to discuss as the show continues when we come back, my friends. Speaking of dishonesty, looks like Turd Ferguson and the Seattle Times are doubling down on the false narratives about the poor illegal aliens being detained by ICE. We'll tell you what they said now when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, plus so much more. You know the reason. Always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI, left on your dial, always right on the issues. ICE is really triggering the left because they keep arresting all these illegal aliens. And President Trump has done a great job of putting the left on the wrong side of everything. Turd Ferguson had a really bad 24 hours, really, really did, between the CNN interview and then this tweet. Okay. Remember the story 2 weeks ago. Oh, they arrested firefighters who are fighting a wildfire. Oh, the humanity is the first time the left ever cared about first responders. Oh, it's terrible. Oh, my stars, I'm clutching my pearls. And then remember, we found out piece by piece that this story didn't make sense. Right off the bat, I said, they don't hire illegal aliens to be firefighters yet in Washington. So this didn't make sense at all. Turns out it was a logging company that was brought in to clear the woods, and you had 2 illegal aliens who were part of that crew. And the Bureau of Land Management said, we don't want a crew that would do this here, because if you're hiring illegal aliens, there are safety concerns, especially when you're part of this crew. We want you out of here. And they fire the crews. And the firefighting efforts were not affected. Now, here's something entertaining. The left has clung to this narrative of they were firefighters. They were not firefighters. You had Emily Randall go try to visit the facility. She knows a thing or two about fire, right? She was bragging about her gas fireplace right before she banned gas, tried to ban natural gas for all of us. Okay. So Bob Ferguson shares something from an outlet called Stateline. Mike, I've never even heard of Stateline. You know what I think Stateline is? This would be my guess. There's a lot of outlets that pick up headlines from other outlets and run them. They're basically aggregator sites or whatever. So these guys probably picked up the old headline with the firefighters, and he shares it. Wildfire veterans furious at DHS claim that raided crews were not firefighters. The crews were certified firefighters performing frontline roles. I don't know who Stateline is, but that's all been entirely debunked, completely debunked. And in fact, Breitbart found out who these illegal aliens were. According to Breitbart, Democrats and their allies in the establishment media are falsely claiming that the Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents have arrested a pair of firefighters in the sanctuary state of Washington. In actuality, the 2 men are not firefighters, but rather illegal aliens with past criminal records. Last week, the establishment media ran wild with a story claiming 2 firefighters were arrested by ICE agents in Bear Gulch, Washington, amid an ongoing wildfire. Jose Burton Cruz Estrada of Mexico, one of the illegal aliens arrested, has previously been charged with delivering and selling methamphetamine. Oh, a drug dealer was on your logging crew. Well done. Well done. Cruz Estrada has been encountered by Border Patrol agents a total of 15 times. That means he illegally came across the border 15 times. Cruz Estrada was ordered deported by federal immigration judge in April of 2015. Wait a minute. That was during Obama's presidency. And deported by ICE agents on February 27, 2016. After his last deportation, Cruz Estrada crossed the southern border, again at an unknown date. The other illegal alien arrested by ICE agents was previously charged with illegally carrying a concealed weapon. Hey, Bob, I thought you cared about firearms. I thought you wanted to get firearms off the streets. So Bob Ferguson literally has a tweet. After all this has been debunked, and we knew that they were drug dealers and a guy who's carrying an illegal weapon, you are now going to bat for them, still claiming they're firefighters? Are you kidding me? This is really the hill you want to die on. Good luck with that, Bob. What, you need some content for social media that day? He's not the only one, though. Seattle Times put out this headline this morning. Disabled U.S. Army veteran remains in limbo at Tacoma ICE Detention Center. We debunked this 3 times already, this story, and they keep going back to the well. But the crazy thing is, they are avoiding the actual facts, even though I know for a fact they have seen the facts. What this should really read is convicted fraudster remains in limbo at Tacoma ICE Detention Center. A convicted fraudster who is also an illegal alien is being held at the Northwest ICE Processing Center and facing deportation. We have discussed this person on many occasions. So Department of Homeland Security came out with all the information that Mohammed Chaudhry has an extensive rap sheet and was arrested by ICE. So Bruce Harrell came out with a statement, this is wrong, you shouldn't arrest this guy. And you got people like Bob Ferguson, the Seattle Times, everybody saying, how could you arrest this guy? Kshama Sawant is doing protests for him. Yeah, when he was a taxi driver in Australia, a customer didn't have money and left their passport as collateral. He used it to try and open bank accounts and obtain medical benefits. He also fraudulently used a credit card. He was convicted for all these crimes. Then, when he was coming to this country, he lied on all his immigration paperwork and said he had never been convicted of a crime. Then he falsely claimed he was deployed to Iraq after joining the National Guard. Department of Defense records show he was never deployed, but collected close to $500,000 from the Department of Veterans Affairs Veterans Benefits Administration. He owes the U.S. a negotiated settlement, which means they were going to charge him for all of that, and they were nice and let him off with only $81,000 for a mortgage reduction grant from the VBA. But he has made no payments on them whatsoever. Now, I know that the Seattle Times has seen this information because they quote selective parts of it, but they bury the rest of it. In fact, they leave out the majority of the fraud claims against this guy, and they bury his crimes like 30 paragraphs down in the article. So it wasn't bad enough. They had one article that got debunked. Now they're going back for seconds, thinking we're not paying attention anymore? How disingenuous. You are that desperate. You have such Trump derangement syndrome that you are going back for seconds on an article that has been publicly debunked by multiple government agencies and by me. For the guy who's married to a jihadi, who's a convicted fraudster, Bob Ferguson, keeps going back to this firefighter well, even though you've got a guy who was dealing methamphetamine and crossed the border illegally 15 times? My God, these are the worst cases of Trump derangement syndrome in the entire country. Turd Ferguson and the Seattle Slimes. These are the two worst ones in the entire U.S. When we come back, my friends, lots more to discuss. We're going to be interviewing a Democrat who I am endorsing in their race for the Washington State Legislature. And I bet when you hear from him, you're going to support him as well. Tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. My friends, our next guest, I get to make good on a promise. I told my friend, Kevin Schilling, who is now the mayor of Burien, who is running to be in the Washington State House in Washington's 35th legislative district, I told him that if he ever ran for higher office, even though he's a Democrat, I would not only support him, but I would also fundraise for him. I would door knock for him. I would do whatever it takes to get him elected because he's a common sense man who listens to both sides. And he always comes to the right conclusion. I'd say 9 times out of 10. But joining us now on the Warrior Injury Law studio line is Kevin Schilling. Thanks for being back with us today, buddy.
Absolutely, Ari. Thank you so much.
Such a pleasure. So why'd you decide to go out of Burien, where you've had a lot of success, and take the jump into the State House?
You know, the biggest thing is that I was seeing, as mayor and as a city council member, I was seeing laws that were being passed at the state level that were not helping people save money, that were making communities less safe, and that were creating a lot of unfunded or unsupported mandates for cities and local governments to have to push for. And we were just seeing regulation after regulation being put in place that made it harder for local communities to keep people safe, expand law enforcement presence, do something more innovative there, build more housing, grow wages, grow jobs. And there were just constant regulations and more taxes and things coming down the pike that made it hard for local communities and entrepreneurs and businesses and property builders, property developers to do what they needed to do. And I kind of said, you know what, I think we need to give people choices, because what really did it for me was that there was an appointment process for the new state house member in the 33rd legislative district. And in that appointment process, there was somebody that was appointed, was not even the top choice of the 33rd legislative district. It was picked by party insiders. And I don't think that's how we need to continue to operate government in the state of Washington. I don't think party insiders should be the ones to pick who your state representatives are. People should have choices. People should be inspired and encouraged to run for office. And the establishment shouldn't get to always choose who they want just because it's who's best for their special interests.
I'm sorry. I'm not sure you're a Democrat. I mean, it sounds like all the stuff that you're saying sounds a lot like what I normally say, but what I think it comes down to is both our parties, you kind of have the right and the left that think they're imposing what they want, and the common sense is kind of left out. And I think you are illustrating a point I make all the time. If you sit down with somebody from the opposite party, you will agree on 60 to 90% of local stuff, because I hear you saying the exact same things that I say. And that's why it's so refreshing to have somebody like you. So what happens when you're in the legislature and you're being pressured by 100 other people of your party, and you're saying this is common sense and what you guys are doing aren't? What are you going to do in that situation?
It's funny. I tell people, I get asked that all the time. And my answer to that is I've already been through the ringer. Mm-hmm. Like, I've already gone through years of purists and ideological purists telling me that I'm not a real Democrat, I'm a fake Democrat, I'm not good enough because I support regulating public space so that we don't have unregulated tent encampments. I support getting people into treatment, expanding involuntary treatment support. I support law enforcement. I support business growth. Like, these are all common sense things that we need to have a thriving community. These are all things we need to have a thriving state. And my thing is, I really come at it from the fact that, like, I think left-wing extremism and right-wing extremism is bad. I think that the common sense middle is where the vast majority of people are. But it's also, in this day and age, it's also where we have the least amount of engagement. The common sense middle have basically said, like, oh, what's the point? Why bother voting, or why bother supporting something when, like, the far left is going to get everything because it's the only people who run for office, or it's where all the money is, or nationally they look at what's going on and they're like, oh, well, we can't do, the far right's doing everything nationally, even though I think, like, these definitions don't really work anymore. I think everything is, there's new definitions that need to be made, but ultimately I'm against extremism anywhere it is. I think we need to be way smarter and way better at determining how we solve problems. We need to be better at saying that didn't work, and I'm admitting that didn't work, and we need to go back and fix it, because we can't just continue to stick to doing things that aren't working just because they satisfy an ideological purity test. That's what causes the worst homelessness ever. That's what causes high crime rates. That's what causes high taxes and no outcomes that continue to make people frustrated, and then people don't want to be involved in the process.
Exactly. That's also what causes the split in the GOP we're seeing right now, where everybody has their ideological purity popularity tests. And instead of actually running candidates, we're all fighting each other about who's the most Republican or who's a rhino. We're talking with the mayor of Burien, Kevin Schilling, who's running for Washington's 35th legislative district, and he's got my
33rd.
Sorry, 33rd. Sorry, 33rd. Correct myself. See, even I get things wrong from time to time. 33rd legislative district, and he should be on your ballot. He should be your pick of the ballot. So you get into office. What are the top 3 bills you're going to be sponsoring right away? What are the things you want to focus on?
You know, the number one thing that I'm running for and working towards is fixing our state-run psychiatric and treatment system for folks who are on the street, who are clearly in need of mental health treatment, psychiatric treatment, drug addiction treatment. We need to totally revamp and improve our state-run capacity for it, because basically what's happened is governments, large and small, state, local, county, have basically taken a bunch of taxpayer dollars, given it to nonprofits, and told these nonprofits to run all these operations. And that's what we see leading to problems with like permanent supportive housing and DESC and all that stuff, where it's a lot of money going towards a system that's not showing any improvement or results. And that's all because like we've totally given up on having state-run capacity and having government do this process and build out beds and build out treatment. And we're not being serious about it if we're not talking about involuntary treatment, because that's where the problem is we say, oh, okay, you're on the street and you're clearly going through a mental health problem, or you're clearly going through a drug addiction issue, but we're not going to do anything to fully support you get better. And that's why we need to expand out our involuntary treatment system. So that's number one. Number two, I think we need to fully do permit reform in the state of Washington. A few years ago, there was zoning reform that allowed for more density, allowed for more building. That's all well and good. We need to build more housing. We need to build more commercial properties, but we can't do it if we're not encouraging permit reform, because it takes forever. It takes like half a year sometimes to get a permit, sometimes longer, and it costs a lot of money. And we need total permit reform in order for not just for housing, commercial property, energy, any kind of building that we need in order to expand supply and expand out output. We need permitting reform across the board. So those are top 2 things. And then last, something that I'm just really interested in personally is around workforce development and building out the pipeline of getting kids out of high school into workforce opportunities that actually lead to jobs that pay a lot of money, lifelong benefits, being able to live in the place they want to live, Washington State, and be proud of the work they're doing, have dignity in that work. I think right now we're not seeing that pipeline exist, and then we're seeing a lot of things not happening just because there's not the work. We don't have cheap healthcare, we don't have cheap housing, we don't have things lowering costs, because we don't have enough people going into these workforce areas in order to lower the costs, in order to create supply of that workforce that leads to faster times to get in to see your dentist, faster times to get in to see your doctor, faster times for a house to be built. You know, we need hands to do the work, and the workforce pipeline needs to be built out in order to make that happen.
Kevin Schilling, mayor of Burien, candidate for Washington's 33rd legislative district. He should have your support. Kevin, what's your website if people want to donate, volunteer, help you out, learn more about you? Where should they go?
electkevinschilling.com, and Schilling is spelled Schilling, the German way, not the British way.
Before I let you go, I just want to say, my friends, there are very few candidates who I say, this is somebody you must vote for. A lot of times you have a choice between bad and worse. No. Kevin Schilling is a great guy. I have been talking to him for over a year and a half now. He does great things with Burien. He put himself out there against his own party. He deserves your vote and your support. Kevin Schilling, thank you so much for being with us today. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Ari. I appreciate it, too.
Always a pleasure. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Last week, President Donald Trump took away Kamala Harris's Secret Service detail. Now, you got to ask how many people actually want to kill a vice president? How many people actually want to kill Kamala Harris? Why are we paying for this afterwards? Does Tim Kaine still get Secret Service protection? Does anybody who ran for vice president still get Secret Service protection? Just kind of wondering about that. The only person I think who wants to kill Kamala Harris is the Democratic National Committee because she lost so bad. Or maybe Doug Emhoff because he can't spend time doing things while Kamala Harris is on the campaign trail. Allegedly. Wait, no, he confessed to some of them. I can't keep it straight anymore. So, here, California decided they were going to provide the protection for her. What are they providing protection for? She's going on a book tour. Mike, I'm really curious if she's coming here or not. I haven't looked at the entire schedule. The first schedule I saw, she wasn't coming to Seattle. Then it said she was coming to Seattle. I haven't gotten a definitive ruling on that yet. I'll have to look it up at a commercial break or something. But while she's going through California, the Los Angeles Police Department was providing her protection. And you got to wonder who's paying the bills on this. Now, they have an understaffing problem, and they have a massive crime problem. And now they're running around with Kamala Harris. I have a theory. Would you like to know why they were paying for that? Why it was ordered for them to do that? Because of Gavin Newsom. Can you imagine if Kamala Harris got mugged on her book tour? What that would do for the narrative? It would be international news. That's how unsafe Los Angeles is. Don't think it could happen? Do you remember that Adam Schiff had his car broken into and all his luggage stolen when he came for a fundraiser in San Francisco? And he showed up to the thing wearing street clothes when everybody else is in suits and he's trying to raise money out of people? Who would still give that fool money when you know how bad crime is? This is just, crime, boy, I don't know. Is it just that kind of thing? Where they said, oh, yeah, we're going to give you money anyway because you've done such a great job with California? I would have walked right out of the thing. Welcome to our world. But no. Well, now, after the backlash about Kamala Harris getting police protection and the people of Los Angeles not getting it, the Los Angeles Police Department has removed officers from a security detail assigned to former Vice President Kamala Harris's Brentwood home following backlash over her use of city resources. According to the Post Millennial, last week a dozen officers have been stationed. A dozen officers! A dozen! My God. Outside Harris's residence after President Donald Trump revoked her Secret Service protection. While former vice presidents are normally covered for 6 months after leaving office, hang on a second. Can we do some quick math here for a second? 6 months. So Donald Trump goes in on January 20th. February, March, April, May, June, July, August. That's 7 months. Donald Trump gave her a bonus. Turns out it was extended past the July 21st deadline by President Joe Biden. So President Trump rescinded the extension, which he wasn't needing anyway, and it's not something you normally get, but the lamestream media left out that little angle, didn't they? Instead of Harris hiring private security, the city initially stepped in. By the way, you know all these presidents, they get Secret Service for X amount of time, then they got to hire private security. So do politicians. So do I. And you know what? It's things you have to spend money on. It's part of the gig. If you're doing so well off your book and you're doing so well off your speaking engagements, you should be able to hire these guys with no problem. You know what should be a condition of your speaking engagements? That there is security there. What do you guys think? Should Kamala Harris have been provided security past the 6 months that every other vice president gets? Is she so special? Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. It's really bad optics. Look, do I think politicians are targets? Absolutely. But it's really bad optics when Bruce Harrell can't hire police officers, but he's got two sitting on his house every single night and driving him everywhere and going everywhere he goes. We don't get that. Bunch of neighborhoods here don't have the correct number of patrol officers because it's so bad. But politicians look out for their own, you know what I mean? Gavin Newsom, one of his big donors is PG&E, the big utility company down there in California. They're the ones whose ancient equipment sparked the wildfires. They were found liable for it. But then Gavin Newsom's like, no, you can't do that to my friends. Not going to happen. We're just not going to let that happen. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a little carve-out for my utility buddies so they can still give me lots of money so I can be governor and then run for president, just like Auntie Nancy said I could. According to the Post-Millennial, a California state bill that would have required Southern California Edison, as well as other private investor-owned utilities, to remove unused power lines to reduce wildfire risk, has failed to advance in the legislature. Gee, I wonder how many other campaigns they are funding as well. The measure, introduced earlier this year by State Senator Sasha Renee Perez, followed reports rising concerns from investigators and experts that a decommissioned transmission line in Eaton Canyon may have been the ignition source of the destructive January wildfires. The Los Angeles Times reported that Edison knew some electrical towers under investigation were overdue for upkeep and had been classified as an ignition risk. Perez's bill would have required Edison and other utilities to submit plans to remove decommissioned lines that are considered a liability. A spokesperson for the senator told the Los Angeles Times that the bill would have increased California's electrical infrastructure and wildfire resilience by improving wildfire mitigation planning, enhancing emergency response efforts, undergrounding power lines, and requiring closer collaboration between utilities, emergency services, and local communities to prevent wildfires. That's not advancing. But I guarantee you, just like the Washington state legislature, whatever is the wokest thing, that is probably the thing that is advancing in the legislature. Looks like a lot of you not happy about her having her own security. So John in Lakewood says, send Harris Schiff to Griffith Park. Yeah. Man, I remember when that place used to be nice. Exactly. That's a good one, John. Appreciate that one. Lots more to discuss as this show continues. More of your calls, more of your texts during the final hour free-for-all. And also, as Tucker Carlson completely lost his mind. We'll tell you what's going on when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show's final hour free for all. Your calls, your texts, your thoughts, your stories. Streaming live at KVI.com and the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, plus so much more. But before we get to any of that, some fascinating, absolutely fascinating feedback on the text line about our interview with Kevin Schilling. I knew some of you would be upset that I said, hey, I'm backing this Democrat here, but some of you brought up some interesting points. Now, let me tell you why I'm backing Kevin Schilling for a minute. Kevin Schilling is the one who went head-to-head with King County. He's the one who went head-to-head with his own party over the fact that he didn't want homeless people camping in public spaces in Burien. I don't know if you've been to Burien recently. I go to Burien fairly regularly. And when I'm in Burien, I see it getting worse and worse. I go about once a month, and it gets progressively worse and worse and worse. He's the one who could have said, it'd be easier to advance in this party if I just went along with what they said. But he said no, and he drew a line. Now, the person he's running against is a far-left lunatic. This isn't a Bruce Harrell, Katie Wilson situation. This isn't that at all. First of all, anytime I ask him to come on the show, he comes on the show. Anytime I have a tough question for him, he does. Mike, he actually does. There's been one or two times he said, I need a week, I need 2 weeks, I need 3 weeks, I need 4 weeks, or whatever the case may be. But he's almost always come on the show when I needed him to. Then there's also this. Which is, it would have been so easier for him to say, no, I'm not even talking to you. Not coming on. It would have been easy for him to say, I want to advance in this party, so I'm going to do what they want, and then I can climb the ladder, because he's clearly interested in climbing the ladder. He's liked in Burien for the most part. Now, some of you said this. I got this one here from the 206. Schilling talks a good game. Check his record. Schilling supported and voted for downtown emergency services, 90 apartments in downtown Burien. Schilling voted to remove single-family zones and add drastic upfilling density to neighborhoods recently. Huge issue, and he is on the wrong side of the community. He sides with leftist progressives. No parking required. Schilling supported the haircut of Main Street roads, which has created safety and congestion problems for Burien. Now, I'm going to assume that whoever sent me this from the 206 is 100% correct. I will agree with you. Some of that is extremely problematic. For example, the Department of Emergency Services. Those guys are an absolute disaster. So, I agree with you on that. Messing with the roads. I'll agree with you on that one too, because you know what? I hate when they do that in Seattle. At the same time, you know what I know? I can ask him all these questions and get a response for all of you, which I am going to do. Next time we have him on the show, we won't be so nice. We'll ask him about these. And the more stuff you send us from Burien, we will ask him these questions.
Also, Ari, I don't necessarily mean to call folks out who decide to text the show, but we keep a record of all of the texts, so I could see when you've texted. This person hasn't texted the show for a month. The last time they texted was to take the trip or win the cash.
Well, I will say is that this person also emailed me. They also emailed me here. And I will say this person emails me from time to time with other stories and things like that, and it seems like a legit concern. So I'll tell you what. 206. I am actually going to get these answers for you. Don't know how long it'll take, but I will reach out and say, hey, after your interview, got these questions. Would you mind sending over some answers so I can have them for the audience? They're fair questions. They're fair accusations. Absolutely. And by the way, here's the other thing. It's not like the stuff we get out of left field. Like right over here, we got one person. I'm not going to call you out, but this person going, this guy sucks. Okay. Well, thank you for that. Give me something a little bit more productive. I will say, though, the person he's running against, absolute lunatic. Why would you want to take that chance? So I hear what you guys are saying. And it's right to be cautious of Democrats. We've had our heart broken by Democrats before. But you know what? He fought the good fight when it came to the camping in Burien. He really, really did. So you know what? We will get those questions. We will get those answers for you. And we will talk about them on the air. This one here, 360. Ari, the guy sounds good, but he has a D behind his name. Just can't trust him. I'm sorry. Do you remember that there were one or two Democrat holdouts in the legislature who stopped some really bad bills from going through? We are hoping he is going to be like them. That is our hope. Because he has already bucked his party before. And we had those Democrat holdouts on our show, and they would also come on anytime we asked them to come on, and they would discuss this kind of stuff. Unfortunately, they're not there anymore. And we need to stop a Democratic supermajority however we can. Look how disastrous this last session was. And it can get so much more. It can get so much worse. It really, really can. It can get so much worse. We don't even know what they're cooking up this time. But you know what I'll bet? Tara Simmons is probably sitting in her house right now thinking, what other things can I do to release criminals? And this time, the Democrats got their big wish list items. Here's something else. Today there was a big press conference with Turd Ferguson. Hasn't really made the news yet except for our friends over at Northwest News Radio. Them justifying with economists how bad the budget is because of their out-of-control spending and how much they're going to need to tax all of us. Last time I checked, it was almost another $1 billion. They say they're going to be short this year. What do you think's coming in the next legislative cycle? When they talk about affordability, we need to tax you to make things more affordable. Guaranteed that is what is coming. Guaranteed. So you know what? I'll take a Kevin Schilling, but I will ask him these questions. 100%. Mike looks like he's got a look on his face.
I'm just trying to wonder, again, one of my big hot button pet peeves is like purity tests and stuff, right? Who else am I going to vote for? Mm-hmm. It's not like there's a Republican in this race.
Right. And here's the other thing. Mike,
I got either the guy I like or the leftist lunatic. I'll take the guy I like.
Exactly. Who's friendly.
Sorry, he's got a D next to his name.
Exactly. And here's the other thing, guys. If you live in Burien and you're so upset about these things and you're directly impacted about these things, why didn't you run for office? All right. I got into this biz because I ran for office. Was it brutal? Absolutely. Did I get threats? Absolutely. But at the same time, I wanted to make a difference. So, guys, why aren't you stepping up? You don't want the choice to be between little d and big D. You need to step up, or you know what you need to do? You need to go through your phone, and you need to say, who's that friend of mine who really likes politics who I think would make a really great candidate? What, you think the Yankees keep beating the Mariners because they have open tryouts? No! It's because they actually go and recruit people. The only time open tryouts ever worked was in that Invincible movie with Mark Wahlberg. That's the only time I know of a team doing that, and they all thought he was crazy at the time. And what? They got one guy. They got one guy out of the entire city of Philadelphia, and that was back in the 1970s. Oh, and by the way, he didn't win a ring. I'm pretty sure they won all the rings after him. See, I know a little bit about the foosball because I saw the movie. But here we go, guys. You want to do something about it? Go join your local GOP and find some good candidates because, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, was there ever a Republican even in this race?
There was, but we didn't know his name.
Boom! Exactly. How much of a chance you think a person has that does that? And I'm tired of having that conversation, by the way. So many times Mike, we invite anybody on the show who wants to come on the show and talk about their platform, no matter how crazy they are. And we've had some crazy. We had one guy come on the show who was talking about how he was a Trump Republican, and every single policy he gave me was a Democrat policy. And not because of like the moderation of Trump. It was because this guy didn't know what a Trump Republican was. And he was convinced he's a Republican. And he was giving me every single Democratic policy, claiming it was something Trump supported. It was really one of the craziest interviews we've ever done. I mean, not a lot of you paid attention to it because you just go, this guy's a wackadoodle. But that was nuts. Really nuts. Mike's shaking his head like, yeah, you've had crazier ones than that on the show.
Yeah, no, I'm just agreeing.
Yeah. Exactly. Anyway, switching gears entirely here. Tell me if this sounds familiar to you. So a whole bunch of Hollywood celebrity types are saying they're not going to work with Jews anymore.
Oh, no.
Wait a second. Hang on. This sounds really, really familiar. You're talking about the elites of society, Emma Stone, Mark Ruffalo, among the bunch that say they're just not going to have anything to do with Israeli filmmakers at all. So you're not going to work with Gal Gadot anymore because she's Wonder Woman and she was in the IDF and all that? Is that really the route we're going to go? She does pretty well at the box office most of the time, unless you're in a woke Snow White. You're just not going to work with people like that anymore, right? Just kind of curious. Don't want to be in that fasten your seats 10, 11, whatever's coming out. Don't want to be in that movie. It's a little ridiculous. We've seen this stuff in history before. What are they mad about? They claim there's a genocide in Gaza. This has been debunked many, many, many times. They're really going to do this again? But I'll tell you something. One of the crazier voices is one on the right, Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson isn't just going after Israel. He's also going after America. I listened to his stuff over the weekend. It was one of the craziest interviews I've ever heard. There were 2 clips that were really, really nuts. Tell me if you think he's jumped the shark entirely.
Let me just say, I would be totally comfortable sharing condolences with Osama bin Laden's family. I hate Osama bin Laden. On the other hand, if somebody dies, it's okay to say, I'm sorry to his family that
he had a toddler.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Oh, the terrorist had a toddler. Oh, we should feel so bad for the guy who killed 3,000 Americans. In fact, more when you factor in the terrorist groups he ran. Are you kidding me with this? If you didn't dislike him before, that didn't do it for you? No, I'm not giving condolences. Should you give condolences to Yahya Sinwar's family? Oh, it feels so bad. You killed all those Israelis, but it's not your fault you live with a terrorist. Give me a break. His family was in hiding with him in Pakistan. Why do you think that was? If you didn't like him, get out of Dodge. Get out of there. But no, instead, they were part of this. Some of his family members were found with guns in their hands when they did the raid on the compound. This guy killed 3,000 Americans. You want me to give condolences to his family? No. Would you give condolences to Osama bin Laden's family? Give us a call or a text. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. That wasn't all he said in this interview.
No one can plausibly claim that a Christian family are in Hamas. Okay, so tell me, you can't claim that they're in Hamas while simultaneously claiming that Hamas is a group of jihadis. They're Islamic extremists, which they also claim constantly, which I don't know if that's true, by the way. It seems more like a political organization, but whatever it is, they're telling us constantly they're Al-Qaeda.
Seems more like a political organization. So the terrorist group that has killed thousands of people over the past few decades, they're more like a political group. And don't forget that Hamas hates America as much as they hate Israel. But they're a political group. Is he funded by Qatar? Who's paying his bills? You know the good thing about the strike on Qatar is you're going to find out exactly who's being funded by bad people. Whether it's bots for clicks or whatever the case may be, you're going to see it based on what they say tonight and what they post. I can only imagine how this conversation went between Bibi and President Trump. Because you know what happened, despite what the White House says. So what happened was earlier today, Israel took out the heads of Hamas, who were being harbored in Qatar, in the capital of Qatar, not some backwater city like Osama bin Laden in Pakistan, in Abbottabad, a place you've never heard before. They were being harbored in the capital, Doha, the capital of Qatar, where President Trump was there, 3 months ago? They were being harbored, right? He might have driven past their houses without even knowing it. They were there. They've been there for over a decade. They've been there since the beginning of the war on October 7th. Qatar has told Hamas, don't give back the hostages. Qatar has helped fund Hamas and helped fund terrorist organizations. What, you think Israel didn't give Trump a heads up before this whole thing happened? I can only imagine it. They call him up and they say, the negotiations are breaking down. So President Trump, right, he comes out with his tweet. He posts, "This is my last warning. Latest hostage deal. We're going to do it. We're going to get it done. If you don't do it, this is my last warning. There will not be another one." That's what I used to say to my kids all the time. Used to say it. No more warnings, not even counting to 3. We're just going to shut it down. Shut it down. So he says his last warning on Sunday, right? Hamas once again says they reject the offer. Bibi calls up Trump. Beep, 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 boop, boop, boop. Mr. President, Hamas has walked away from the table again. We need to do something this time. We're going to take them out. I have an idea. I have the greatest idea, Bibi. You're my best friend. I know what we're going to do. You're going to take them out. I'm going to give you full permission, but say I had nothing to do with it because I got a military base and we're trying to be nice. That's basically what happened today. I know they're saying that we didn't know about it. Are you kidding me? You think Israel wouldn't give the U.S. the heads up? Of course they would. I bet you Rubio knew about it. I bet you they all knew about it. And I don't have a problem with that. Because right now, Qatar is just as guilty and Hamas is all of this. They've been harboring them the whole time. They've been hiding them this entire time. But Israel sent out the message. Stop screwing with us or we will find you wherever you are. We don't care what country you're in. You have all the heads of these Arab countries condemning Israel for doing this. And at the same time, they're thinking to themselves behind the scenes, oh, thank God, because we don't want them in our country. Otherwise, they'd be accepting Palestinian refugees. Otherwise, they would have accepted Palestinians years before this, decades before this. They don't want Hamas either. Otherwise, they'd say, bring them into our country. That's what they'd be saying. But they're not saying it. Behind closed doors, we know they are actually grateful that Israel is taking out these guys because they don't want to deal with them anymore. Problem is, there's too many people who just want the clicks. And somebody like Tucker Carlson, who says things against Trump all the time, he's a coward. And I'll tell you why he's a coward. Because when he says these things, he never says, I disagree with President Trump. He's afraid to say that because he wants to stay in his good graces. Mike, we get yelled at all the time on the show when we disagree with the president, especially during the lead up to the election when we were backing DeSantis before we started backing President Trump. Holy cow, did we get hate emails and hate texts and hate calls. But you know what? President Trump has been one of the greatest presidents, if not the greatest president of my lifetime. And he won me back. At the same time, we still call him out when there's things he does that we don't like. Tucker Carlson won't do that. He wants to stay in the press box with Donald Trump at the RNC. He wants to keep the invitations to the White House. So he's bashing all of Donald Trump's policies, bashing what he's doing on the foreign stage, on the international stage, but not actually mentioning him by name, thinking that's going to keep him in the good graces. And I kind of wonder why organizations like Turning Point USA are continuing to have this clown around anymore. I will eat a little crow, and I said when he went on Twitter, I figured his numbers would explode. They really, really would. Turns out he's just saying whatever the bots want him to say or whatever his sponsors want him to say because he has gone completely crazy. And I wonder if Fox News was saying, all right, this is your area. You can operate in here. This is your area, but don't cross this line. Don't cross that line. And said, now the guy's so huge, he's going to keep crossing these lines. We're going to have problems with him. If you are saying you want to give condolences to Osama bin Laden's family, a guy responsible for the death of 3,000 Americans, something's wrong. If you're calling Hamas a political organization and not a terrorist group, if you're denying the Holocaust and all the other outrageous things he's having on his show, you've gone around the bend. And I wonder if he actually believes all this stuff or if he's actually doing it for clicks. But I'll tell you something, I know he's a coward. And I know he's a coward because if he disagrees with President Trump, he should actually say he disagrees with President Trump by name, as opposed to this dancing around. We do it all the time whenever we have disagreements, and you guys call us out for it. What do you think? Coward? Doing it for clicks? What do you think's happening with Tucker? You give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, a local sheriff is under investigation for something completely crazy. We'll give you all details when we come back. But first, Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast right now on the Ari Hoffman Show. I like Sheriff Keith Swank. Friend of the show, been on the show a bunch of times. But recently, he's in trouble because of his social media account. Do I care what he posts on social media? No. But I notice he's posting more often than I do. That's my problem. My problem is you were elected to be sheriff. And the issue is, if you're spending all this time on social media, I know being in the office can be boring, and maybe not being on the streets is boring, and you want to pass the time. But let's go back and remember why Keith Swank won his election. The left didn't think he had a chance. He ran a good campaign and managed to slide under the radar. What all this tweeting is doing, he may be saying things we 100% agree with. And I am not suggesting we limit his free speech, but he's tweeting like me. He's tweeting like somebody who wants a podcast or wants a radio show or wants a TV show. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when you're doing all this, nobody is talking about the policies you're actually implementing. You think somebody who got mugged cares what you're tweeting about? No, they want to know that the criminal's being arrested. And Mike, I got to tell you something right now. We follow this stuff. I have no idea if crime has gone up or gone down on his watch. I have no clue because I haven't heard anything about that. I've heard how he wants to work with ICE against the sanctuary state laws. And that's fine. But at the same time, I'm seeing all this stuff on social media, and I'm not hearing anything about what he has actually achieved. And the other thing this has done is made him an easy target for the Democrats. You want to tweet, you want to be an influencer and all that kind of stuff, that's perfectly fine, Keith. It really is. But if you do this all the time, you managed to slide under the radar last time. What it should have been was, I slid under the radar. Look at what I've accomplished. I'm going to run on this record. And this is the record I'm going to run on. And I challenge any Democrat to go head-to-head with me because look what I've accomplished. Public safety, better. Homicides, down. Drug running, down. And by working with ICE, look what I accomplished. I lowered all those numbers. Make them eat their policies. Make them defend them. What's with the tweeting? Now, on the flip side of this, him being investigated for tweets? What are we, the UK? What are we, some random third world country where we don't have freedom of speech? That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. And that should not be happening at all. The investigation is wrong, but at the same time, dude, you're giving them openings to come after you. You want to prove the point? Fine, I understand that. But prove it based on the merits of the argument, which are, look how much better crime has gotten under my watch. By working with ICE, look how many people we've gotten off the streets. All we see is this other stuff. I'm not saying you're wrong about anything you've tweeted. In fact, I've said a lot of the stuff you've tweeted on air. I agree with you. But instead, show them what you're doing in your job as sheriff. Otherwise, I start wondering what you're doing with your day. There's other sheriffs, like Lauren Culp. We always wondered what he did with his day, running a police department of one. We wonder. I'm just asking. Show the numbers. Has crime gone up, crime gone down? Otherwise, I think this is all a distraction. And it's disappointing. Because for me, I want to know that we supported you, that we backed you, and you have made crime better. I don't care about the tweets. I don't know. Maybe some other people disagree with me on this. You can call and yell at me and disagree with me on this if you want. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. But I think what you need to do is you need to look at the actual numbers and cry them from the rooftops. By working with ICE, look what we've done. Look how many illegal aliens we've arrested. Look how much crime has gone down. Look at all the drugs we've gotten off the streets. I want to hear about that, not the other stuff. Maybe you guys disagree with me. This one here from Lance. Somebody needs to do the meme where the person slowly changes into another person. If you know what I mean, I'm talking about Tucker Carlson slowly changing into Keith Olbermann. Oh, that's a good one. I wonder if I could do that with the AI stuff. This one here from the 360. Tucker is totally insanely dumb. Yeah, exactly. Oh, here's one for you from Kelly in Seattle. Hitler had family members. Did anyone give his relatives condolences at the end of World War II? Yeah, you're not wrong, guys. I wonder if he's finally jumped the shark on all this, like the Osama bin Laden stuff is what finally put people over the edge. Meanwhile, other crazy stories going on here in Seattle. A 48-year-old man in Edmonds, Washington is behind bars after police say he violently assaulted two women working at a local massage business, leaving both with severe injuries. He is now facing charges of 2 counts of attempted murder in the first degree and 2 counts of unlawful imprisonment. According to the Edmonds police, the incident unfolded Sunday night, September 7th, just before 5:45 p.m. at the Eva Spa Massage on Edmonds Way. Edmonds police said one of the victims recognized the suspect as a previous customer when he approached the front door. Video evidence obtained by police showed the man barging inside, locking the door behind him, before immediately attacking one of the women as she tried to retreat. The assault continued into another room where a second employee was with a customer. Police say the suspect then turned his violence on both women, striking them repeatedly, including with a metal coat rack. The male customer, who was not injured, reported to detectives that the suspect made statements suggesting the attack was premeditated and targeted. Do you think this guy was coming to this parlor and scoping it out in his previous session so that he could do it? Both victims managed to escape outside, but the suspect followed and continued the assault until realizing 911 had been called. Officers arrived to find both women unconscious with significant head and facial injuries. Witnesses quickly directed police to the suspect, who had fled across the street to a nearby business parking lot. He was taken into custody without incident, but made chilling remarks while being handcuffed, allegedly saying he was angry he had not killed the victims. Officers know the man was wearing bloodied gloves at the time of the arrest. The 2 women were transported to local area hospitals for treatment of multiple lacerations and serious head injuries. Authorities thank community members who assisted officers in quickly locating the suspect. I've reached out to the Snohomish County prosecutors because I want to know if this guy had previous convictions. Is he another prolific offender? Because this reeks of it. Absolutely reeks of it. Smells like somebody who is a prolific offender. Smells like it everywhere. This one here from the 360 on the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Ari, I agree 100% with you. Keith Swank should be talking about his successes, not constantly defending his actions. Exactly, 360. And I'll tell you something. In doing that, you defend your own actions. If you say I'm working with ICE despite the sanctuary state laws, and look at all the things we've been able to do, you will win the argument. They'll have nothing to come at you with except you violated our really bad law. Show them how dumb it is. Really, show them how stupid it is. Meanwhile, this one here is an even crazier story. According to King 5, a former Green Hill school employee pleaded guilty last week to charges that she had sexual intercourse with an inmate and smuggled drugs into the facility. So Green Hill School is not really a school. It's for juvenile offenders. Video evidence presented in court detailed the 22-year-old inmate and this guard having sexual intercourse. This was a surveillance video. They set it up to take it. Man, people are stupid. What is going on in our juvenile facilities? How many scandals have we had in these places so far? How many times is this? What, at least like the 6th or 7th I can remember, aside from the escapes and everything else that goes on at these places. Who's running the show over here? Absolutely crazy. Lots more to discuss as the show continues. When we come back, my friends, reading scores nationally are at the lowest ever. How do you think they are in Washington? Tell you all about it when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KBI. On the heels of finding out people's priorities in life are not about perpetuating the human species, but about their careers and stuff. And I'm not saying careers aren't important, but at the same time, you got to have a replacement. You got to have some priorities on who's having the next generation. We now find out that reading skills of high school seniors have hit the lowest point they have been at in 3 decades, according to new testing data that has been released. In math, the scores also came in at a low point, with scores coming in the worst place they have been since 2005. Before diving into this report, would you like my theories on why? Remember when they said the massive amount of learning loss we were going to have from the pandemic? Now you are seeing it. You couple that with the fact that you haven't caught these kids up. That's how you get to where we're at now. You want to say, people on the left, you want to say that the pandemic was once in a generation event and the deadly pandemic was going to kill us all. It'll kill us all. You want to say that? And you want to justify what you did by closing schools for up to 2 years in some cases? Then you know what? You should say, we need to account for that. The fact that you didn't account for that means you just wanted a vacation. If you really cared about the students, you would have said, we need to make this up. And guys in our union, we really care about the students, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to add an hour to the school day for the next X amount of months or years or whatever it is till we make up that time. But you just want to be on vacation. You want to be like that woman who was one of the heads of the Chicago Teachers Union, who just wanted to stay in the Bahamas on vacation while telling everybody, it's too dangerous to go back. We can't go back. We're all going to die. If you really cared about the kids, you would have fixed this. You didn't. You didn't. Hey, private schools aren't free from blame on this. A lot of private schools go, well, all right, let's just do a do-over. Like we're playing baseball back in the day in somebody's backyard. Do-over. Let's just pick up where we left off and we'll fix it as we go. Hasn't been great, I'll tell you that. The data comes from the National Assessment of Educational Progress Test, which has been the gold standard of testing for decades for the skills of high school students. Now with advancements of AI, those with lower reading skills may be at an even greater disadvantage in the workplace. The test determined that only 35% of high school seniors were performing at or above reading level for their grade. The last time scores were lower than that was in 1992, and the scores from 2024 are the first to be released officially since the onset of COVID. The NAEP says that being proficient in reading as a standard means students likely can connect key details within and across texts and use those details to draw complex inferences about authors' purpose, tone, word choice, and related ideas. You know one of the downsides of AI, for example? When you use AI all the time, you don't know how to solve the problem yourself. So what did we do back in the day, Mike? Let's do this, all right? I know I did this. I don't want to speak for you. When you didn't want to do your math homework, you knew you could get the odd answers out of the back of the book, right? You knew you could do that, and if the teacher wasn't checking or just walking past your table, making sure you did them, you knew you could head fake them. Didn't show your work, though, right? And then you had a real problem when it came to the test, when you still had to learn those formulas. If you have AI do all your homework all the time, eventually there's a test which is not open book. How are you going to do on it? Some people might be good and they can cram the night before. I was good enough to do that and have a gentleman's C-D+ because I just didn't care and didn't do my work. It didn't help me in the long run. Most students were at a basic reading level or lower. The NAEP can't read, defines basic as students likely can locate and identify relevant details in the text in order to support literal comprehension. 38% of high school seniors were below the basic level. Do you know what that's from? Oh, let's just keep graduating them. We feel bad making them do summer school. Let's just keep graduating them and graduate. We don't want them to feel bad. Only 22% of high school seniors also performed at or above proficiency when it came to math skills. Nearly half of the 12th graders were below basic level. In the math test, NAEP defines basic skills as students who can determine probabilities of simple events from two-way tables and verbal descriptions. Those who are proficient, however, can likely distinguish between, find, and compare experimental and theoretical probabilities. So this is how bad it has gotten. Are you surprised? Here's something else. Instead of making up that time, what did they put in the classroom instead? DEI, CRT, all this garbage. If you're spending time on all that garbage and not on the basics, then you are losing out on more learning time, more reading time. I've been mining the Seattle Public Schools curriculum for material for about the past week or so, building up a report on all the stuff I have found. The stuff they are teaching these kids is a colossal waste. All it's doing is saying, you're racist. This is why I didn't get ahead. This is why I didn't get anywhere. It's absolutely disgusting. Because instead of that time that could have been spent making up all the learning loss, you guys did the DEI garbage. Name one school for me. Name one, which has improved scores since they did the DEI garbage. Name one where the kids have better mental health. Name one where student relations between races are better. Name one where it isn't as violent. Name one. You can't find it. You can't because it doesn't exist. You implement the stuff automatically gets worse. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from Jay on the 405. Jay, what's up, man?
Hey, James, and what can we take all that scores and compare it to some place like Florida that didn't shut down? Just show, look, you don't shut down. The kids stayed in school and they got good grades. You kick them out, you get bad grades.
You know what's interesting about this study, James? I think that's the only thing that's keeping these numbers at 30%. Are states that didn't do that. I think they'd be a lot lower because don't forget these are national averages. I think they'd be a lot lower if not for the states that did that. I think you're 100% right. 100% right.
I agree with you.
All right, James, great call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Only good news to wrap up the show. Your good news giveaway, your good news headlines, your chance to win a $50 Daniels Broiler gift card, plus so much more. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. It is time to feel good as we wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And before we get to our good news giveaway, got some good news headlines for you. This one from Como News. I think Mike found this one for me last week. This one cracks me up because I just keep thinking of the movie Me, Myself, and Irene. A deputy in Virginia was spotted taking down an unusual suspect on Monday, a cow on the run. Drivers had a front row view of the roadside rodeo after the cow, first reported running loose on Interstate 81, made it to the less busy side, but still high traffic part of Roanoke Road. Friends, that's of the police department, sent a video that shows a small black cow trotting alongside the side of the road with a county sheriff's deputy in tow. They said it was an animal control officer in pursuit. You tackle a cow if you're an animal control officer? I thought you get a horse and a rope. I saw that City Slickers movie. I know how you do this. In the video, the cow veers off the shoulder of the road and stumbles into a ditch. The deputy uses the moment of struggle to tackle the cow to the ground. And yes, the video is as insane as you would imagine. The cow running loose posed a threat to motorists, especially when it was on the interstate, but it was safely removed. I just think of that scene in Me, Myself, and Irene when he sees the cow that's been hit by a truck or whatever, and he says, oh, we got to put her down, and then she starts moving around, and he starts shooting into the cow. He fires, his entire clip in the cow, and then later on they go, yeah, he's lost his mind. Tried to kill some poor cow. It's a miracle the thing survived. He just keeps shooting it in the head. I don't know why. That kind of stuff is always funny to me. Something else that's funny to me. This one here, according to the Post-Millennial, the Trump White House has trolled each staffer that has ever worked at the White House, including former President Barack Obama, by switching the White House's LinkedIn page photo with a picture of President Donald Trump's face. Obama's LinkedIn page, where it states under experience, President of the United States, includes a picture of Trump's face. You get what's happening here? So they changed the logo of the company, essentially, that's on your LinkedIn page to a picture of Donald Trump. White House Director of Communications posted, confirming the effort was to troll those that had experience in the White House in their LinkedIn. Not very mature, but very funny. The post came in response to a former White House staffer who said on X, the White House is now posting on LinkedIn and made their profile picture a picture of Trump's face, which means if you worked for the White House in the past, it's your profile. People see Trump's face. I guess that's what I get for using LinkedIn. The change of the profile picture comes as the president has been seeking to implement his agenda through the executive branch. Some pointed out all those staffers that worked under Biden will also find that Trump's face is featured on their LinkedIn pages. Eric Daughtry of the Florida Voice pointed out the Joe Biden and Kamala Harris campaign manager LinkedIn profile that said that the manager's page also now features Trump's face. This is Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's campaign manager on LinkedIn. Whoever at the White House made the decision to change the profile picture to Donald Trump needs an immediate raise. It's juvenile. I agree it's juvenile, but I still find it very, very funny. One last one here for you. The Seattle Center monorail, according to the Seattle Times, usually promises nothing more than a quick trip downtown. But on one afternoon this month, you could find yourself in the audience for a dance performance designed to transform this non-space into a magical moment. They have this group, Malarkane? It's not Malarkey. Is presenting two performances of a new Work Through the Artists at the Center program on September 17th, featuring 4 influential local dancers and original music. All right, I don't know about you guys, but when I was on the New York City subway and those break dancers would come through, I'm like, I just want to read my book in peace. Can you guys move along? The mariachi band always cracked me up. I always enjoyed the mariachi band. But the break dancers, those guys they were always like, clear away. And now you got to move. Otherwise, you're going to trip the guys. I mean, the stuff they did was kind of cool, but still, if you want to, would you want to see this on the train as you're going? Plus, it's a really short ride. The break dancers, it was one stop. You get about 3-4 minutes. How long does it take on the monorail? Probably about the same amount of time. All right. Not my thing, but maybe somebody else who appreciates the art of the dance will enjoy seeing this on the monorail. Before I forget, your chance to win fantabulous prizes. Today, we are giving away a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. Daniel's Broiler has been a Seattle favorite since 1980. Features USDA prime steak and other specialties, including chicken and fresh seafood, as well as a selection of high-end spirits, wine, and cocktails. Daniel's Broiler is open now in Bellevue, downtown Seattle, Leschi in South Lake Union with dine-in, takeout, and delivery. Check out danielsbroiler.com to reserve a table, place your takeout, delivery order, and more. We're also giving away a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs. Learn how to design your retirement to support your quality of life for 30-plus years from Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, a local company working to help you grow deep financial roots so future financial storms don't blow your life savings away. Visit madronafinancial.com for more information and discover how you can create a rooted wealth plan today. All you have to do in order to win these fantabulous prizes is be caller number 10 at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Caller number 10 will win a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card and a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs. Phone lines are open now. Give Mike a call for your chance to win at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. And just before we let you guys go for today, I just want to say how much fun it was coming out to the fair yesterday and seeing so many of you. It was so nice that you guys came over to the KVI booth, had some great political discussions, made fun of Turd Ferguson a lot. A lot of you got to honk Mike's horn, which was half the fun as well. And while we were there, had some great conversations. Just a reminder, we will be back at the fair next Monday for the last Military Appreciation Day of this season. So make sure you get your tickets over at kvi.com. Phil will be there. Mike will be there. I will be there. We'll make sure to post the schedules over on social media so that you can see every single one of us while we're out there. And you get to honk Mike's horn out at the Washington State Fair. Had a lot of fun with it last night. That's going to do it for us today, my friends. But fear not, we will be back tomorrow with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and, of course, more giveaways. You've been listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.